Good evening. There's a statistic floating around that says most teachers leave the profession within their first 5 years of teaching. If you were to look at my resume, you would think I was well on my way there. Bouncing around from school to school, it was the perfect storm. At the end of my 3rd year of teaching, I was at my wit's end. I was ready to throw in the towel. I started looking around for other options like grad school. I even made a LinkedIn profile hoping someone was desperate enough to hire me. With no luck and in a panic to pay the bills, I started applying for other teaching jobs. When I arrived at Forest Hills High School, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. For the first 3 years of my teaching, my best practice was teaching straight out of a textbook. But who can blame me? That's how I grew up, and that's how I was taught to teach in college. So I had this, if I learned out of a textbook, you can too attitude. Well, I was in for a treat. Forest Hills didn't have textbooks. So cue the panic. What do you mean there's not a textbook? Teach to a standard, how do I do that? So obviously a million different questions are swirling through my mind, and I'm trying to make sense of all of it. But here's the thing. Even if I was jaded with teaching, didn't mean I wasn't going to try my hardest to still be the best teacher I could for my kids. So as a math department, we focused on creating engaging and meaningful instructional strategies for our students. I had never vetted a resource before, but I tell you what, by the end of the year, I was highly proficient in aligning resources to standards. We went on so many data dives that you would have thought we were training for the Olympics. It was intense, but it was so worth it. By the end of the year, our students were able to achieve 16.5% growth on our Math 1 EOC scores. Now let me put this into perspective for you. Most schools grow on average 2 to 3% every year. So this was a huge deal to us. I had never experienced anything like this. And I tell you this because this experience was challenging. It tested me. There was many nights I went home crying. But it is the sole reason I am still standing here today as a teacher. So last summer, I was browsing Amazon for who knows what. And down in the bottom, where they suck you into their suggested items traps, was a book called Mathematical Mindsets. Well, I fell for it. 2 clicks, 2 days later, because I have Prime shipping, the book arrives. And so let me tell you something. I have not read a book for fun in over 6 years. And I cannot put this thing down. It is speaking to every experience I had at Forest Hills. And it was chock full of meaningful instructional strategies. And it had all of this research, which I'm a total nerd. I love research. So it was awesome. But there was one chapter in particular that I kept going back to. And this chapter was solely dedicated to the practice of tracking. Now, for the non-educators in the room, tracking is the practice of grouping students into leveled classes based on their ability level. And there was a particular story about San Francisco Unified School District. It was so intriguing that I literally picked up the phone and I called the math supervisor in San Francisco wanting to know more. Here's what I learned. Since 2014, San Francisco has detracked their mathematics courses up until the 11th grade. And they did this because they noticed a severe decline in proficiency scores amongst all grade levels. And this decline in proficiency scores led to high retention rates. So for example, of the 8th graders taking Algebra 1, 40% of them were being retained the next year. Nearly half of the students were having to take Algebra 1 again the next year. So San Francisco put their foot down. Enough was enough. They made the bold and beautiful decision to detrack their mathematics courses and to heterogeneously group their students so that they would now learn grade-level mathematics deeply and it be developmentally appropriate. Once they did this, their retention rates dropped from 40% to 8% in 1 year. And that's not even the best part. You see, when San Francisco detracked their mathematics classes, they saw an increase in the number of students taking higher level mathematics, particularly among minority students. And this is a big deal, because the way we track our students creates a divide, something we like to call the achievement gap. I'm going to call it what it really is. It's an opportunity gap. So San Francisco was bold enough to make the decision to now allow all students to have the opportunity to take these higher level classes. And this is happening right here in North Carolina. In a 2010 study done by North Carolina State University, over 2,900 8th graders were monitored for their tracking practices. And what they found was heartbreaking. For the white students, the mathematical performance indicator and the teacher recommendation, the mathematical performance indicator was taken into consideration by double of that of the teacher evaluation. For the black students, the mathematical performance and the teacher evaluation weighed equally. You can see this here. And part of the study's conclusion reads, it appears that high performance among black students may not be attributed to the students' own mathematical abilities as it is to their white peers, and does not provide access to higher level mathematics placement. And that should make you feel some type of way. Because here's the deal. If our kids want to go into a STEM-related field in college, they must have calculus or statistics prior to admission. But if we are going to be in a track system where we make decisions on behalf of 6th graders, 11-year-olds, their ability level, we are never going to allow those kids the opportunity to explore mathematics. Back to my favorite store. This hits right at home for us. Not too long ago, Amazon considered calling Charlotte home to its second headquarters, bringing over 50,000 jobs and $5 billion in investments. It's huge. But if you've watched the news, you would know that we didn't make the cut. We didn't even make it into the top 10. And the biggest reason why is because we could only supply 47,000 tech workers, half of what other bidding cities could. So it begs the question, can we not only be doing more for our kids, but for our community? So over this past summer, I got a phone call from the principal at Crest Dale Middle School explaining that there was an 8th grade math teaching position open. And something you need to know about me is that I love middle school kids. I think they are the coolest humans on this earth. Some of you are laughing because you don't want to do my job. While it was a tough decision, I decided to leave Forest Hills and follow my heart to Crest Dale Middle School. I forgot to show you that slide. There's Crest Dale. All right. So listen, I know we cannot detrack our education system overnight. And as a team at Crest Dale, we're still working through these ideas on how best to make changes. But one idea that we all agree on is the damage a label on a student can do. You see, labels such as honors and standards can be fatal to a student's self-identity. One label piles on the pressure, scarring kids with a fear of failure and an unrealistic expectation to be perfect. The other label tricks students into believing that they're incapable of learning high-level mathematics. Which undoubtedly turns into low motivation and low effort, and can you blame them? You see, these labels, we fall victim to them as well. We know not all honors kids are well-behaved children that get concepts right away. And we know not all standards kids are behavior problems that are incapable of learning at high levels. So now, I make the conscious decision to ignore the labels. I want all of my kids to have access to higher level mathematics. So I start every day believing in each and every one of them. So short of overhauling the tracking system, my hope is that when you leave here and you go to work tomorrow, if you're going to work tomorrow, it's a Friday. Oh, I'm going to be in trouble for that one. Okay. My hope is that you go back to school and you start treating all of your kids as mathematicians or scientists or historians. And watch the reaction. They are going to be engaged and they are going to be excited to learn. And listen, I started this journey and I was totally apprehensive and uncomfortable deviating from what I knew. But I knew I had to make a change for the sake of my kids. So I tried different warm-ups. I tried investigative learning. I tried not lecturing at the board. And the biggest thing that I could do was try. I had to try. So now I view every day as an opportunity to push my kids to their full potential, not the one prescribed by the label. Thank you.